All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to second Saturday workshops here at Fixer Upper Fitness. I'm so glad you guys are along for the ride. I'm so excited you're here. For those of you who don't know, we do a second Saturday workshop every single second Saturday, and it's something that we love to do here at Fixer Upper Fitness. They typically revolve around certain trends in the fitness industry, and so we have three topics that we kind of go on a cycle. The first topic is nutrition with our dietitian Gwyneth Bradshaw. We also do a yoga workshop, and we do a fitness-oriented workshop. Our last workshop was yoga with your kids. Gwyneth did that one as well. Today is our fitness-based workshop, and if you guys are tagging on, I'm so glad to see. Hey, Alyssa Hazel is watching. And hey, we're so excited that you're here with us today. We're going to talk about something that's really kind of cool, and it's really, hey, Miss Katie, Mr. Hazel, how are y'all doing? We're going to talk about a very popular topic, and that is how to get the coveted six-pack. And on top of that, we also want to talk about just core strength in general and some strength training principles. Now, I'd love to give you an outline of what we're going to talk about today, and I don't want to spend a terrible amount of time talking at you through the phone. We typically like to do these in person, but as you know, we're going to roll with it this way, and we're going to have a good time doing it. So today's outline of how we're going to do things, we're going to talk about what is core strength, right? What you've heard that thrown around all over the place, probably your entire life, what core strength and why it is important to train your core. We're also going to talk about the muscles that are involved with the entire core and what their responsibilities are, and then we're going to break it down to just the muscles that are most important or most active when we talk about the six-pack or the toned midsection. Hi, Miss Liza, how are you? We're going to break down those muscle groups, and then we're going to talk about the characteristics of those muscles as well, and why it's important to understand the characteristics of a muscle when you want to train it specifically. And so when it comes to the core, it's very important to do that. So we'll talk about certain characteristics of those muscles. That would be the type of muscle that it is, what motion does it actually help you do, and then we're going to talk about certain types of muscle all over the body and how that's important in strength training. We're going to talk about the best exercise to do for each exercise, each muscle group as well. And so this is all it's a science-based topic. We don't just say what feels good here at Fixer Upper. This is all research-based stuff, and this is going to be really exciting. A lot of great information that we're going to hope to share today. Once we get through all of the fun stuff, all the stuff that makes me sort of geek out a little bit, we're going to build our core workout, learning using our new principles that we learned. And we'll build our core workout together. As we're building our core workout, there'll be a time there to answer some questions if you have them as well. I'll do my very best to answer those questions from right here. Hey, Gwyneth, how are you doing? So without further, let's go ahead and, actually, even though Gwyneth is watching, I'll probably touch on some nutrition stuff as well. Hi, Miss Jill, you made it. I'm so glad. We'll probably touch on some nutrition stuff today because that's very important. But let's start at the very top. Thank you for everyone who's watching right now. I hope some folks tag along as we continue on, and maybe they'll come in for the ab workout. So let's talk about core strength in general from a very young age. I'm sure that you've heard your doctor, your coach, your mom, your grandparents, they'll say, oh, you got to keep your core strong. And well, they're not wrong. It is important to keep your core strong. And I'm going to give you just a few reasons why it's important to keep your core very, very strong. The first of which is it's to stabilize movement. This is the one we've all heard. Good morning, Miss Jill. This is the one we've all heard. It's stabilizers, right? And so if you think about any movement that your body does, walking, running, getting in and out of the car, your core is active and it's working. It's kind of working behind the scenes at all times to make sure you can do all these motions and do them without stumbling or falling. The second is probably the next phase of, or group of people, and that would be your athletes. Generation of power and athletic movement. The core, over the past probably decade, if you were to follow along, there's been a lot of research done on the core, and if you go to any like sports medicine center on professional athletes or major college campuses, you'll see that they've done a lot of strength tests about the importance of the core in athletic movement. And so you'll hear this phrase, the X factor, and that's any cross-body movement. If you break down most every single sport, it has to do with some generation of cross-body movement, and that's the X factor. And so sports scientists and trainers have said, hey, the stronger we can make this X factor, this core strength, the better our athletes are going to be. We also have coordinated unilateral movement. That's a fancy way of saying moving one side of your body while the other side's not doing anything. So once again, walking. Think about when you reach in and you grab that gallon of ice cream off the top shelf. The bag of steamed broccoli off the top shelf. Yeah, your core is going to be active there as you're using one hand versus the other. And this plays into that stabilizing the movements. It also plays into our next point, and that is it decreases the likelihood of injury when your core is very strong. So think about catching yourself when you stumble and fall. If your core is able to activate, engage, and keep your spine nice and straight, you're less likely to tumble and less likely to lose your balance. And so fall prevention is one of the benefits of having a strong core. Along the same lines as there, if your core is able to stay strong, or if you're able to keep your core, hey, Miss Dawn, how are you? If you're able to keep your core very strong, you're less likely to develop a chronic pain issue in the low back or in the hips and knees and joints. All these things are connected. There's a funny little kid's song about how all the muscles and joints are connected. Well, that's very, very true. And a lot of times, if one of those things gets a little wonky, that is your core, it can actually affect everything else in your body. So if your core stays nice and strong, you're less likely to develop a chronic injury like low back pain. That's the most common one. If you do actually say it's like, it's too late, I already have chronic low back pain. Developing core strength can actually alleviate and attenuate your chronic pain, and actually in some cases can heal with the right type of core training. You can actually, Pastor Brian Lord, how are you doing? You can actually fix or cure or heal your low back chronic pain by some simple and specified core strengthening. So those are just, all those lead to a higher quality of life when your core is strong. And then on top of that, we got to say it, sometimes it just feels good to look good. And when you have a nice tight core, aesthetically, that can be pleasing to you or to whoever you're trying to impress. And so we have to add that, hey Tom, how's it going? We have to add that on top of there. Most of us are training because we want to look good, right? And so aesthetically, having a nice toned midsection is important. It's important to me. I'm sure it's important to you. And that might be why you're here. So those are some of the reasons why it's important to have a strong core. Let's talk about what actually entails, what kind of muscles are in the core. And most of you probably know there's more than just muscles in the front, but we're all familiar with the rippling abs down the middle on the front of the magazine in the grocery store or whatnot. Yeah, we all know about the muscles of the front of the core, but remember, core strength is actually your entire torso. It's front and back, flexion and extension. And so let's talk about the muscles of the core that make up the core strength. Now there are a lot of muscles in the body that make up your core. And we're going to talk about the primary movers here today. So we're not going to talk about the minor ones. We're just going to stick to the big ones, okay? And so the muscles of the front of the core, the ones that we're going to probably focus on today as we talk about our six-pack, are the muscles of the Rectus Abdominis. That is your six-pack. That's your six-pack. That Rectus Abdominis. It's got a funky name. My wife laughs every time I say it. So we also have the Transverse Abdominals, and we have the internal and external obliques. Those are muscles that are kind of seated in the front of your torso. All right. We also have muscles in the back and deep in the hips, and those are your psoas muscles, your erector spinae muscles, and you also have your Quadratus Lumborum. Now, the top two there are really pivotal in posture. Quadratus Lumborum is your deepest layer of core strength. It is sort of deep in the hips, and it helps keep your spine upright. So a lot of the back muscles, we think about them not so much as, man, I need them to look good. I need to train my midsection. Well, the muscles of the back are for back extension, and they keep your posture upright. Hey, Katie, how are you doing? And so we're not going to talk about those as much today. Not that they're not important, because they are. It's actually a 1-to-1 ratio when I talk about the muscles of the front of the core and the back of the core. You want them to be equal. You don't want to train one without the other. And so, but we're going to focus primarily on the muscles of the front to help us get that coveted six-pack. And so let's break it down a little bit. We're going to break down these into 4 different muscles. We're going to do internal and external obliques as 2 separate. So the first is the Rectus Abdominis, and this is the one, like I mentioned before, we all know this one. This is that coveted six-pack, right? It looks like I don't know what it might look like, but it looks like blocks that are sitting in just beneath the skin. These muscles are just below the surface of the skin, so they're the most superficial, and that's why you really see them when you train them really well. Okay, and their job is to, well, we'll talk about the job in a little bit, but I'm going to so that's the Rectus Abdominis. They are the ones we all want those to pop out, right? The second is the Transverse Abdominals, and so the transverse, they are seated on the beneath the external and internal obliques and underneath the Rectus Abdominis. The transverse are the kind of the deepest layer in the front of the body. And then lastly, we have the internal and external obliques. External oblique means it's on the outside, and it's actually seated over top of the internal oblique. So those are the 4 exercises the 4 muscles rather that we're going to talk about today. So let's dive. I can't tell if he's being sarcastic or not. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. All right. We're gonna go ahead and dive deep into each of these, the characteristics of these muscles, and it's very important. Now, if at any point you feel like I'm getting too in depth, just stop me and say, I don't understand why you're even telling me this. This is sort of important. You're kind of getting into the mind of a personal trainer or a sports scientist as to why they do the exercises that they do. Okay, so let's talk about the characteristics of these muscles and what we would call the kinesiology of these muscles. That is the movement, what movement these muscles actually make you do. So the first one is the Rectus Abdominis. This is the one that we want to spend the most time on because we're like, we need that six-pack, right? So let's talk about it. It is seated right in front, superficial, right to the skin. And this is where we're going to get sort of into it a little bit. We'll talk about the movement pattern of the kinesiology of this muscle. It's important to note when you're thinking about training a certain type of muscle, these are the things that a personal trainer thinks about. So the first one is what is the movement of this muscle? So what does this muscle make my body do? What is the purpose of this muscle? And so to do that, you look at where it's seated, where its origin, and where its insertion is. And we won't have to go any more in depth than that, but where the muscle starts and finishes tells you what it's going to do, okay, as the first step to telling what it's going to do. You have to know before you go. All right, so what we're going to do, the Rectus Abdominis starts actually at the bottom of your hips, what's called the pubic bone, and goes up to the base of your sternum, okay? And then the second part you need, so it travels right along the front. The second part you would need to know is what striation of the muscle, maybe not as important, but I always like to geek out about why a muscle is situated a certain way, and it can really tell you what it's supposed to do. So the striation of the muscles of the Rectus Abdominis are vertical, they're up and down. And so when you think about a muscle contraction, we always think about the muscle getting shorter. If you think about your bicep, right, as I pull my arm in, the muscle gets shorter and you get a little bulge there. Keynote, it's little, I got little arms. But so the same thing with your Rectus Abdominals. All right, they are striated, the muscles vertical. And so when that muscle shortens, it draws you in. It draws you into trunk flexion. And so I have 2, 4, 6, or 8 Rectus Abdominis there. As they get shorter, it's going to pull me into trunk flexion. So if I'm this way, you can take a peek. if these muscles contract, my shoulders are going to come to my hips, and that may be the layman's term to help you realize what that muscle group or what that muscle does. It brings your shoulders to your hips and your hips to your shoulders. It shortens the distance between your shoulders and your hips in the front of your body. So that is the rectus abdominal muscle there. The second muscle group we're going to look at is the internal and external obliques. We'll do external first. The external oblique is going to start on the outside of the hip. If you can see, I'll just use one side. It starts on the outside of the hip and up here at the base of your ribs, and it's going to come all the way across, down and in, okay? It's going to come to the center line of your six-pack, right? That's called a linea or linea alba. It's at the center line, and it's also going to go down into the hip and to the pubic bone as well. Now, it's important to know that the striations of this muscle, if you follow my fingers of the external oblique, they go down and in. So if we use the same principle as we had for the six-pack or the rectus abdominis, if those muscles get shorter, it's going to pull me over and across. And so when we talk about the primary movement of the external oblique, it's going to be forward flexion with rotation if you follow along that movement pattern. So the external obliques, to go from the outside down and in, it's going to pull your shoulders flexion and rotation. Flexion and rotation, those are the primary movements of the external oblique. It should be noted that the rectus abdominis, although its primary movement is flexion, it does have a little bit of rotation because they are actually centered. They're not exactly centered. There's a set on one side and a set on the other. So when you flex and rotate, those muscles will be working as well, but they're not the primary mover. The internal oblique sits beneath the external oblique, and it's actually where your external oblique is sort of down and in. The internal oblique actually is a little more horizontal and comes across the body a little bit more. And so it's also going to help with that flexion and rotation, but it also helps to compress the midsection and stabilize everything in your core. And so it will compress and squeeze that area and increase the inter-abdominal pressure to allow you to do more work. So let's review real quick. We've done three. We did the rectus abdominis, that's forward flexion. The external oblique is flexion and rotation. The internal oblique, flexion, rotation, and a little bit of abdominal stability. The last one we're going to talk about today is the transverse abdominal. And this one you say, transverse, I've never even heard of that muscle before, and you're gonna question again. It is the deepest of the muscles of the front, like we mentioned before. So if it's so deep, are you even gonna see that muscle when I'm trying to get my six-pack? Well, it's very important to train this muscle. This is sort of your abdominal wall. So this is underneath your rectus abdominis. It's underneath your internal and external obliques. And what it does is it works to compress and stabilize the spine. It works to keep things that are in your core where they're supposed to be. And so if you think about this is one thing, this is probably the best one to think about if you want to think about what the muscle is actually doing, okay? Because it comes straight across, it's horizontal, it comes from the outside and in, and when you squeeze this muscle, it actually compresses your core, compresses your cavity, keep things nice and tight. And if we're looking to have a toned midsection, well, there it is right there. That's the muscle that kind of cinches the waist in. As you train that muscle and strengthen that muscle and learn to have control over the transverse abdominal, you actually end up strengthening the base of your core, the deepest level of your core. And you're here trainers and personal trainers and physical therapists and everyone, yoga instructors will say the most important part of your core to train is that deep level of core, the abdominal wall and the pelvic floor. Now, we're not talking about the pelvic floor today, but the abdominal wall is so important to train. Like I mentioned, that goes from the outside in. And so if you think about what we're doing here, we're going to try to shorten the distance of these, where these muscle patterns are. So for the rectus, it's forward flexion. For the obliques, it's flexion and rotation. And for the transverse abdominals, it's in together, trying to compress everything and draw everything in. In fact, the cue that you hear many times, and I'm sure a lot of our clients who may be watching may have heard this before, they'll say, pull your belly button into your spine. That's the exact way to flex or to contract the transverse abdominal. And so now that we kind of got, are there any questions? I'll stop right here because that was a lot of sort of science or sports science, kinesiology. Are there any questions about any of that as far as the muscles of the core that we want to make up the six-pack? I'll give a few seconds here. Hi, Jeff Holiday, Amber, how's it going? You guys are awesome. Any questions? No, pretty good? I'm going to continue to press forward then, if that's okay. So let's step away. Let's step aside from the core just for a second, okay? And we're going to talk about some just muscle biology, muscle anatomy, muscle physiology, if you will. Hey, Mr. Don Whalen, how are you doing? And so let's talk about the different types of muscle in your body. In your body, you have different types of muscles. Oh, can you overdo and hurt the core? Well, yes. To answer that question quickly, belly button to spine. There it is. Gwenny's got it. Yep. Pull the belly button into the spine. You can, yeah. I'm going to hit that point, Mr. Hazel, in just a little bit, talking about the core and the best way to train the core. That's a good question, for sure. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to step away from the core just for a moment and talk about muscle physiology in itself, how the muscles actually work, how you train, okay? And so in your body, you have different types of muscle fibers, and we're going to keep things pretty simple here today. You have a type 1 muscle fiber and a type 2 muscle fiber, and the type 2 muscle fiber has two different parts, and we're not going to get into the different parts. There's an A and a B. The difference has to do with how they draw their energy, but we're going to talk about type 1 and type 2. We all have a certain makeup of type 1 and type 2 muscles in our body. There are some muscles that are more type 1 and some muscles that are a little more type 2, and then each person has their own different makeup of those type of muscles. But here's what's important about when you start to understand types of muscles. Type 1 is an endurance style muscle. It is all about lasting for a long period of time, and it's bread and butter. When you train a type 1 muscle fiber, it gets super efficient. And that's the muscle group. If you want to relate that to a certain athlete, think about your marathon runner. That person has a lot of type 1 muscle fiber. It's very endurance. They can do the same thing over and over again for a long period of time. The type 2 muscle fiber is well, backtrack just one second. The other part of the type 1 muscle fiber is that it's important to know that it gets activated first. And so when you first start to work out type 1, they're firing off. And the reason that's important because the type 2 muscle fiber in your body, it only gets activated when the workout intensity is high enough. So it has to be a powerful or a forceful or a difficult or vigorous workout for that type 2 muscle fiber to be activated. Now, once that type 2 muscle fiber is activated, it does not last very long, and it takes a little bit longer to recover. So kind of the opposite of the type 1 muscle fiber, the endurance fiber, it recovers fairly quickly and it can last for a long time. The type 2, we'll call that the power or the strength part of your muscle, it doesn't last quite as long and it takes a little bit longer to recover. So what does that mean? I don't know. Let's kind of take this picture a little bit bigger now. So we're at the muscle fiber level. Let's take it out. Like I mentioned before, a type 1 muscle fiber is endurance, and we talked about the marathon athlete. So you want to think about someone that person's fairly skinny, right? You don't want to. This is why it's important to know the difference between the two. No one's going to say that the marathon runner who just ran 26 5-minute miles is weak, right? They're just the opposite. They are super strong when it comes to endurance activity. And just like no one's going to tell the guy who just, overhead press 700 pounds but can't, walk up the stairs without getting out of breath, no one's going to say that he's weak because he just lifted all that weight. But he's done a great job of developing the type 2 muscle fiber. And so here's how this relates to muscle physiology. When you train a type 1 or an endurance muscle, it gets more efficient, like I said. So that means it's going to get smaller, and it's not going to add load to what it's doing. It's going to try to become as efficient as possible. And so that's why it gets smaller and elongates and nice and slender and makes itself streamlined, if you will. It wants to make sure it can do as much as work as it possibly can without taking up as much space. Just the opposite. The type 2 muscle fiber, its bread and butter is it wants to do work and it wants to do power. And to do work and power, you got to build strength, muscle, and size. And so when you train a type 2 muscle fiber, it's going to lend itself to hypertrophy and strength, size and power. It's going to make sure it's going to make the muscle larger or appear to be bigger. And so this will debunk the common, pitfall for core strengthening from Sally in the gym, who does 1,000 sit-ups every day. There's your answer right there. Why isn't my midsection toned? I do 1,001 sit-ups every day. Well, it's because you trained one type of muscle, and you train the one that makes the muscle actually smaller, albeit efficient. And that's kind of cool if you can do, 1,000 sit-ups. And I'll comment on a lot of you guys saw probably a month ago, somebody broke the plank record, right? Like 8 hours of plank or something like that. The first thing that I think of when I see that, well, that's because plank's not really that challenging. It's not that hard of an exercise if you have to go 8 hours for it to be challenging. The second thing is that's an endurance exercise. And so it's cool. It's really cool. But if you can do it for 8 hours, is it really that challenging? It's like standing for 8 hours. Is it really that hard, or does it just take time? I don't know. Now, that being said, I'm not going to do an 8-hour plank, but that just kind of relates to our muscle physiology here. So here's how this all comes together. Let's bring it back into the core. We talked about how there's different muscle fiber types for each in your body, and in your core, it's no different. And this kind of goes back to your question, Mr. Hazel. You must treat your core just like any other muscle group. Your legs, your chest, your back, your arms. It is just the same as any other muscle group, meaning you have to train it. Hey, Tim Hastings, how are you? You have to train it like any other body part, because it has equal parts, or it has two different types of muscle fibers in it. And the core is really unique, and this is one thing that kind of makes it very easy to train the core, is that the muscles of the six-pack that we're talking about today are 55% type 1, that is your endurance, and 45% type 2, that is your power, your strength, and your hypertrophy. That means it's almost an even dead split of power and endurance, which means when you start to break this down, when I start to train my core, what do I need to do? I need to train it power and endurance. I can't just do one and then the other. I have to train it both ways. Just like you would, the most fit or toned folks that you see in the gym are most likely folks that train across the whole spectrum. They don't just stick to one style of working out. They don't just do strength training. They don't just do endurance training. They do a little bit of both. And what that does is train multiple types of muscle to give you a better aesthetic appearance or toned appearance. And so we must train the core that way. The cool part is you don't have to train your internal obliques different than your external obliques, and your rectus abdominis different than your transverse abdominis. They're all the same. It's the same breakdown. So that's something that's really cool. I'm going to skip, we're going to pause there for a second. I want to jump into Gwyneth's RD lane just a little bit. She's always telling me to stay in my lane, but I'm going to jump in her lane real quick, and she can comment, or you can private message her if you have any more questions about nutrition. But before we start to talk about what exercise works best for each muscle, let's talk a little bit about this myth or this saying about, you've all heard this before, the abs are made in the kitchen, right? I'm probably guilty of saying that to somebody. When someone asks me, where's my six-pack? Well, you got to do that in the kitchen. Well, true and false. So this is where nutrition does come into play. It is very important, just like every other part or aspect of your health and fitness, that you have a balanced diet and you are eating the right things and the right amount of the right things. It's important not to get swept up in certain diet plans or diet schemes. Gwyneth, I hope, would back me up on this. If you're eating a balanced diet of all the three major types of macros, that is your carbohydrates, aka sugar, your fat, and your protein, if you're balanced there and you're eating enough fruits and vegetables and things like that, you're getting everything you need to, unless you have some sort of deficiency. And that is very important, and that will lead to becoming more toned, especially if you're someone who's trying to lose weight, if you're eating the correct amount of each thing, if it's balanced. However, you can't eat a stalk of celery and an ab's not going to pop out of the, I did the right thing, 8 days in a row, 1 ab for each day because I ate really super healthy. That's just not the way it works. You can't build abs in the gym, or in the kitchen. You can't make abs in the kitchen. Your abs are most definitely formed in the gym and through abdominal training. They are revealed in the kitchen. That's the difference there, but they are not made in the kitchen. They are revealed in the kitchen. And even that, to a degree, because what we just talked about before, they are revealed in the gym as well by your training tactics. You would have to be a rail, like super unhealthy skinny, to see your abs if all you ever did was train endurance activity in your abs, right? I mean, if you like your Sally who did 1,000 crunches, she's probably got a really strong core, but unless she's at like 3% body fat, you're never going to see them because her muscles are made to be efficient. It's probably the rectus abdominis, when you train it that way, it gets very flat and very slender and very efficient. There's not going to be any bulge to it at all. You're not going to be able to see it unless you go around and feel for it. Or that person is like emaciated. So you have to reveal your abs and make your abs in the gym, and you have to train them for strength and hypertrophy. And this is, I don't want to get off on too many rabbit trails because we do have to do a workout here eventually, but this goes the same with, we talked about this a little bit in one of our FAQs. I check it out if you get a chance. It's on our YouTube and our Facebook about, I don't want to get huge, I don't want to get bulked up. Remember, part of being toned is actually building muscle size, right? If you only build slender and lean muscle, you're going to look very lean and very slender, and you're not going to have much structure to your frame, whether it be your shoulders and arms. I know a lot of guys and gals love to have a defined arm and shoulder. Well, if you only train, with light weights and do 30 reps of everything, your muscles are going to get smaller. They'll get more efficient. You'll be able to do, overhead claps until the end of the day. But if you want to actually have look like you actually have some muscle tone there, you have to build muscle tone, and muscle tone means build size and build strength. You have to build some hypertrophy. Now, unless if there's any gals out there worried about, I don't want to look too manly, especially in my core. I don't want my hips to get wider when I train my obliques, and I don't want to have my stomach get bigger when I train my rectus abdominals. It's not the case. You'd have to be eating too much protein, first of all, and maybe taking some sort of supplement that's probably not good for you to make the muscle look that big that it would actually change your waist shape. Most of the time when you train the obliques, your stomach will your waist will get smaller and will shrink. Your abs will be less likely to actually look like your stomach is pouring out, because you train that transverse abdominal, you're pulling everything in, you're keeping things nice and tight, okay? It is important to train these muscles in the correct way. So that's my little tiptoe into Gwyneth's lane. I don't think she got mad at me. It looks like she was laughing, so that's good. Maybe she was laughing at me. But that is an important principle across the board. Train correctly for each muscle group. And remember, it's more than about being lean. You want to build some muscle tone. You got to train the muscle completely, not just in one way, right? That's what it means to be most healthy. Okay, we're rounding it out here. Is everyone's sticking with me for the most part? We're going to get ready to do our core workout in a second. But first, and this is for those of you who have been following along for our workout of the day at Fixer Upper Fitness, this is today's workout of the day. It'll happen in just a few minutes, but I want to break it down. This is when we're getting down to the nitty gritty. This is how we do build our six-pack. There's Dawn, though. That's right. Flex on them, Miss Dawn. All right, so let's talk about scientifically what are the best exercises for each of these muscle groups. Now, you're wondering how in the world, these aren't just Zach's favorites. Now, I do like to impose my favorites on personal training clients every now and again. Hashtag shout out to lunges. I love lunges. But these are EMG studies. That means that EMG studies for the best exercise for each ab muscle that we talked about. Remember, the 4 ab muscles that we talked about were the rectus abdominis, the internal and external obliques, and the transverse abdominals. So we're going to break those 4 down and talk about the best exercise for each one, okay? The first one we'll talk about is the rectus abdominis. This is the 6-pack, right? The one right in the middle with the, washboard abs and that kind of stuff. That's what we're going to talk about first. And the way we determine this is by EMG studies. That means that in a research lab, they stuck some electrodes on someone's core and said, do these exercises, usually like 20 different exercises, and these electrodes measure the force of the contraction and the excitation of those muscles and which one did it the best, okay? And so for the rectus abdominis, the best exercise, now remember let's see if we can all remember what motion does the rectus abdominis do. Everyone remember what it does, right? Trunk flexion, bringing the shoulders close to the hips, right? That's trunk flexion for the rectus. So what do we think is the best exercise for, the best version of exercise for the rectus abdominis? Anybody have any guesses out there? I'll give a few seconds for guesses. It's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna just absolutely blow you. No guesses? Maybe it's a little bit behind. Nope. No guesses. Believe it or not, it's the good old-fashioned crunch and sit-up. It's the sit-up and the crunch. Who knew? These exercises that every single person knows all about, the crunch and the sit-up, are the best ways to build the rectus abdominis. Oh, Jill's got it. She's got it. I jumped the gun. Miss Jill was right on it. And that's right. When you do these, yep, Miss Liza, crunch. That is correct. When you work out, sit-ups, Katie. She's got it. Miss Katie loves her sit-ups. She can do them all day long. I didn't wait long enough, I guess, but yeah. So the sit-up is the best way, or the crunch is the best way. Oh, thanks, Gwen. The sit-up is the best way to build the rectus abdominis. Now, we can break this down into 2 different parts. The sit-up, now your abs, because it's kind of a lengthy area to train, right? So we can actually split this one right in half. For the top part of your abs, maybe the top 4 of the 6-pack, you want to work out crunches or sit-ups. And the best way to do these are just standard crunches, sit-ups, weighted sit-ups, anything where you're adding resistance to the midsection during the crunch. And we'll go through those in just a little bit. For the lower part of the rectus abdominis, the best exercise is a leg raise. And now we're going to unpack these in just a little bit as we go through our workout. But it should be noted that there is no research evidence that says a crunch, a sit-up, a leg raise is bad for your posture muscles, given that you are already healthy. Now, if you already have a back problem or a postural problem, it may not be a good idea to do a crunch or a sit-up. That just goes without saying. But there's no research that says a typically healthy individual can't do a crunch or a sit-up. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that say, oh, that's bad for your neck or bad. It's not true. There's no research to back it up. So it's a good exercise. And to put it, boo, leg raises. Miss Liza loves the leg raises. Yeah, we got to do the leg raises. We do have to do the sit-ups and the crunches and the leg raises, and we have to train them in each facet that we talked about before. That way, that is with endurance and with strength and power. So I had another thought and I lost it, but that's okay. It's important to be safe while you're training those. So for the obliques, both internal and external, if you remember, the oblique takes your body into forward flexion and rotation, and so the best exercise to do with that would be any form of rotation. When you looked at the EMG studies, a cross-body pull from high to low is the best way to strengthen the oblique. So if you think about cable pull from the high position down to the low is the best way to train the oblique. An oblique crunch would also be another acceptable exercise for the internal and external obliques. And for the transverse abdominis and for the internal obliques a little bit, one of the best exercises, or the best exercise for this, would be focused abdominal training, that is with a plank, elongated plank, pelvic tilt, abdominal squeeze. These are all muscles that are going to highlight that transverse abdominal muscle the best. So putting it together, those are the exercises we're going to focus on. Those are how we're going to build our routine in just a moment. I do want to say building your core routine, when you talk about building your routine for your workout, we do want to, like we mentioned before, we want to train this just like we always train a regular muscle group. And so 3 to 6 days per week, you can train 2 to 3 exercises per sessions and 3 to 4 sets per exercise, okay? And it's important, 2 to 3 exercises per session, you know, get some rectus abdominis, get some flexion, get some transverse, get some stability. So, you know, keep the variety up and keep the variety of training up. All right, so I think barring any questions, which I'd be more than happy to answer. I know I'm a little bit behind, so I'm gonna kind of let this catch up. You guys can give me a thumbs up when we're ready to build this workout. I also want to give you guys time to, like I said, ask questions and get ready, because I'm gonna go directly into the workout in just a moment. So, and we're gonna do so many leg raises, Miss Liza, it's not even funny. Oh, thanks, Miss Dawn. All right, we're here. All right, let's talk about how we're going to build our workout today. Now, what I want to focus on is this might go a little bit slower than a normal workout here at Fixer Upper or a normal workout of the day, but it's because we're doing it live. And so, first, I want to say thank you for everyone who has been tagging along this whole time. I know we've been going for a little bit of time here. My plan will be to start this workout right at 10:45. We'll start to go right through it, okay? But what we're going to do is do 3 different rounds of exercise, and we're going to focus on each muscle, each round. The first round, we're going to focus on the endurance of the muscle, okay? The second round, we're going to focus on, thanks for the thumbs up, a little heart there, thank you. The second round, we're going to focus on type 2 muscle fiber. We're going to talk about how to build strength and size for each muscle. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't add in a little bit of the antagonist. It is important to train the muscle antagonist when you're training as well. So we don't want to be one-sided. We mentioned that very early on, that we don't want to remain one-sided in our training, right? You see a lot of folks who maybe they only train their core and they end up hunched over, or they only train their quads and they end up with weak hamstrings and a bad hip, so on and so forth. We're going to train both ways, okay? So I want to go through each round. We'll take a break. Hey, Miles, how are you doing? Each round we're going to take a break and talk about each exercises. I'm going to give you some different ways, different modifications, okay? But this is today's workout of the day for our abdominal strengthening, how to get a 6-pack. So type 1, round 1 is going to be our type 1, our endurance style muscle. We're going to do exercises for reps with little rest in between. So we're going to do 25 reps of our crunch. We're going to do 25 reps of bicycle kick. We're going to do 25 reps of a Russian twist. And we're going to do a 30-second plank. It's a great day, guys. Awesome job. Thanks, Miles. Kind words. So crunch is for the rectus abdominis. The top part, the bicycle kick, that's going to be our lower leg exercise. That's going to be for our lower part of our rectus abdominis for that 6-pack. We're going to do Russian twist, 25 reps. That's going to be for the obliques, internal and external. We're also going to do our plank, but we're going to focus on a abdominal squeeze, pulling the belly button in, like Gwen said before. So let's get started. We'll go here in about a minute. And actually, while you guys are getting set up, I'm going to go grab a stopwatch, because I always forget one of those, and I do actually use them. All right, we're back. Let's get started here, and I hope you guys can hear me. I'm gonna do my very best to speak up. If you guys can't hear me or see me, just let me know, and I'll come over and make some changes, make some comments. But I'm gonna kind of roll through this, and you guys tag along as best you can. And if you have any more questions, feel free to post your questions during this time, and I'll come back and get them after we finish our workout. But let's get our workout started. Tight. Round one, we're gonna work on the endurance part of our muscle. We wanna build all muscle fibers in the core. Let's start with 25 crunches here on the mat. All right. So for our crunch, remember we're working on our rectus abdominis. So think about pulling the shoulders to the hips. I like to do mine with my hands over my chest, tuck my chin in a little bit, pulse up and pulse down. This is for endurance, so we're gonna go sort of quick, no rest or hold at the top. If you want to, you can bring your hands down to the side and rest your head. You can just slide your hands towards your heels. You can cross your arms over your chest and curl up, or you can bring your hands to the side of your temple and crunch up as well. Just don't pull on the back of your head this way, right? That's actually not good for your back. So we're gonna do our partial get-ups. Let's get 25 of these. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bringing the shoulders to the hips. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Remember, these muscles recover very quickly. So we're going to go a 30-second break and go right into our bicycle kicks. Our bicycle kick is going to be hands down to the side or hands underneath your bottom. We're going to start with both knees up, head, neck, and shoulders relaxed. You're going to extend one leg out, pull it back in, send the other leg out, pull it back in. Now, if you want to amplify this, you can bring your hands to the side. Make sure you keep that pelvic tilt nice and tight. That's your transverse abdominal and your deep core working on keeping the lower body, lower back nice and tight, okay? Let's go ahead and start. We got 25 on each side. Ready? 3, 2, 1, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, breathe, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Good. So we just hit the rectus abdominis on both ends there, top and bottom. We did our crunch and our bicycle kick. Let's get ready to do our Russian twist. Now this one, if you want to and you have it available, you can add some weight to it. I would recommend starting without any weight and trying to focus on just squeezing the core. I want you to really focus on feeling the muscle as it's working. Remember, our obliques, they go high to low, down and in. And so when we're in this position, we want to think about pulling the shoulder down and in across the body. That's how you're going to work that oblique the best. Connect your mind with the muscle, especially when training the core. Okay? Hi, Alicia. Good. All right, so let's go. Our Russian twist, we're going to do 25 to each side. Nice, tight stomach. If you can, lift your feet off the ground, okay? And go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Last thing we're going to do today is, last thing in round one is a 30-second plank. Planks are done. I'm going to do it sort of head on here. We'll do our plank. You can do a high plank or a low plank. Just make sure your hands are beneath your shoulders when you're doing this plank, or your elbows are beneath your shoulders. So a high plank would look like this. Nice straight back. A low plank would be down on your elbows. Nice straight back. I mentioned the elongated plank. If you want to make this plank more challenging, say 30 seconds is too short for you, for your endurance, then do that elongated plank. And all that means is your elbows are above your shoulders. So instead of your elbow being in line with your shoulder, it's going to be actually extended out in front. And the way that looks is like this. Okay, nice and low, but my elbow is above my shoulder as opposed to underneath, okay? Let's hit 30 seconds of this, and then we're gonna go back and do this in real time with 30-second breaks instead of the breaks for explanation, okay? Ready? 30 seconds of plank. I'm gonna do the elongated plank. Ready, and go. And when you're doing this, just focus on breathing. Focus on keeping your stomach nice and tight, pulling the muscles in. Remember, this is for your transverse abdominals, so we're trying to keep everything nice and tight. It's just 30 seconds. Work very hard. 10 more seconds. Nice and tight, folks. 3, 2, 1, and rest. All right, nice job, nice job. Everyone's doing a great job. This is the time we're gonna take a break. We're gonna roll through this exercise set one more time in real time, okay? And so we're gonna do just 30-second breaks in between instead of the longer explanation breaks, okay? Do what feels good, all right? Don't, if you start to have some discomfort, say in your low back and whatnot, take a break, pause, rest, and recover. Do what you can. Don't try to do too much and end up hurt. If you do start to feel any tension in your low back with any of these exercises, then it's important that you start to work on your pelvic floor strength, work on your pelvic tilts, and then just move a little bit slower. You don't have to move with me. Do what you can in the allotted time, and then continue on. Remember, it's you versus you in this ab routine in the journey to build your six-pack, okay? So some things may be easy for you, hard for me, and vice versa. Just work at your own pace, okay? So we're gonna roll through this next set real quick, 30-second breaks in between all 4 exercises, okay? Ready to go? Jill doesn't like leg raises either. We gotta have a leg raising party. All right, here we go. We're doing all 4. This is gonna be the crunch, bicycle kick, Russian twist, and 30-second plank, back to back with 30-second breaks in between each exercise. Are we ready? Get into sit-up position. Ready. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We take 30 seconds. Get yourself set up for your bicycle kick. Everyone's doing a great job. I'm sorry this is a little bit lagging. Hope you guys are still along with me here. 15 more seconds. Get into position here for our bicycle kicks. 5, 4, 3, 2, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, and time. 30-second rest, and then we're going to take it into our Russian twist. We're not even doing leg raises yet. We're going to do them in just a little bit, though. It's going to be awesome. We got 15 more seconds before our Russian twist. Remember, 30 seconds in between because this is an endurance exercise and your endurance muscles recover very quickly. 3, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Nice job. Take a 30-second break and then we'll do that plank. Now, I'm going to give you, even if the 30-second elongated plank, say that was still too easy for me, then what we're going to do is called an active plank. And so I want you to pull your elbows back beneath your arms. Actually, when you're in your plank position, I want you to actually push your elbows down on the ground and try to press them down towards your hips. That's going to fire off your entire core, and it's much harder. Try to go for 30 seconds. We'll go in 3, 2, and 1. Pull those elbows down to your hips. Bear down with your core. We're only here for 30 seconds, but woo, it's burning. It is burning, burning. Keep it nice and tight. Do what you can. If you need to rest, you take a knee or raise your hips. If not, keep it nice and tight. Keep it locked in. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and time. Nice job. All right, you guys made it through round 1. I hope you all enjoyed that. That was fantastic. You guys did a great job. At least I hope you did. Stick with me here. We got 2 more rounds. Next round, we're going to start working on our strength. So this is when we want to build size. We don't just want to make these muscles lean. We want to make these muscles kind of pop out a little bit, right? We want to be able to see our core. So we're going to do our sit-up. This is just going to be 3 exercises here. We're going to do a sit-up. This is going to come all the way up, and I'll demonstrate this. We're going to do 8 to 10 of these. I'm going to do 10. We'll do our leg raises. We'll do that for 10. And then we're going to do our oblique sit-up and or oblique crunch. I'll demonstrate both. Luckily, on this one, we have longer breaks in between because remember, this type of muscle fiber takes longer to recover. And to train a muscle correctly, it's not all about being out of breath. It's about giving the muscle time to recover so that it works properly, okay? And so that's another principle you got to kind of hold on to when you're in the gym. Just because you're not out of breath doesn't mean the muscle doesn't need time to recover. It's important to give each muscle time to recover. So we're going to get ready to go into our type 2 workout. This is a principle that you want to add to your training if you want to build that six-pack. Training a little bit slower with a little bit of intensity. If you have a weight at home, you can use that. I'll grab a weight here to kind of show you what that would look like. We're going to do our sit-ups to start off with, okay? So if you have a small weight or a dumbbell, you can use that for this part. It's going to add some intensity to the core for us to build some size. All right, let's start with our sit-ups. We're going to do 10 sit-ups all the way. If you want your weight, keep your weight up off the mat. Keep your weight up overhead, curl all the way up and finish with the weight overhead, and then come back down. If you don't want to use the weight, you can leave your hands behind your ears, curl up, and make sure your fingertips get past, or not fingertips, your elbows get past your knees, okay? If you cannot do a sit-up, that's okay. It's not a bad thing if you can't do a sit-up. Sit-ups are hard. So what I would encourage you to do if you cannot do a sit-up is to do a crunch with a 1-second hold at the top or 2-second hold at the top. And really, when you're at the top of your crunch, I want you to think about squeezing your core or your rectus abdominis as hard as you can. So what that looks like is this. You go up, hold 1, 2, 3, back down. You can feel all of them working there as you hold that lift, okay? Let's do our sit-ups, and then we'll go into our leg raises that everyone's so excited about. Let's get 10 sit-ups, nice and slow. Make them count. Ready? And go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nice and slow on the way down. Good. Rest, recover. And it seems we have a fan favorite, so now we're going to go into our leg raises. And the science doesn't lie, unfortunately. This is the best exercise to contract and to work the lower part of your six pack. And so we're going to do our leg raises here today. We're going to hit 8 of these. I'm going to give myself a few more seconds to recover because that's what the body requires. You can have your hands down to the side or underneath your bottom. I would encourage you to keep your legs as straight as you can. As you pull your legs up, you want to get them to their vertical or perpendicular to the floor. If you want to add an extra bit of contraction to this, you can actually raise your hips off the ground as well. Remember that hip tilt is lower abdominal strengthening, okay? So when I raise my legs and push my feet up, I'm working that lower core. So let's get 10 of these leg raises. Legs straight, core tight. 1, 2, 3, nice and tight. 4, if you need to, modify by lowering the feet. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nice job, everybody. Nice job. 10 leg raises. You guys did a fantastic job. Hi, Miss Lee. We have one more work that we're going to do in the strengthening portion of our abs, and this is for our internal and external obliques. We're going to do an oblique sit-up or an oblique crunch. I'll show you both. The oblique crunch is just like the regular crunch, except you slide your knees off to one side. Put one hand across your chest, one hand up towards the ceiling. If your legs are off to the right, you want to put your right hand across your torso and your left hand up. You're going to push straight up. Don't come across, push straight up and feel for the oblique to fire off in your side, okay? You might even be able to feel both internal and external oblique working at the same time. That would be cool. If you can do the oblique sit-up, I would encourage you to do this. We're going to do 10 on each side. Miss Katie loves these. Both Katies love these. We're going to do our oblique sit-up here. So this one's a little more complicated, but it is the best exercise. If you don't have anything, if you don't have a T-band or anything to do rotation with, this is the best exercise to do for the oblique, the internal and external oblique. You want to lay on your side. The side you're laying on, that arm will be on the ground, the opposite hand behind your ear. Bend your knees ever so slightly. You're going to push off this bottom elbow and lift your elbow to your knee as you raise your legs. I'm going to do 10 on each side. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good, nice job. We'll flip sides. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good, nice job. So those are 3 exercises to help our build muscle size, hypertrophy, and strength. Let's repeat those 3 one more time, taking about 45 seconds between each set to give ample time for recovery. Y'all ready to go? Y'all hanging with me? Saving it for later. All right, cool. So remember the modifications. I'll show them each one more time for each. Liza, Jill, did you all survive the leg raises? I hope so. I hope I didn't lose them. Y'all ready? 3 exercises. Sit-ups, weighted, or crunch with the hold. I'm going to do the crunch with the hold this time with the weight. And then we have the leg raises with the pulse. And then we also have the, the oblique sit-up. So like I said, I'm going to do crunch with the hold with the weight. And we're going to get 10. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I encourage you to try both ways, the sit-up and the crunch with the hold, and let me know how you feel, and then compare the two. That way you can really start to feel what I'm talking about when I say there's different types of muscle. So we just did crunches. We did 25 crunches on that first round, and it was like, all right, that was pretty good. 10 reps with a little bit of a hold and a little bit of weight, much different, much more challenging. And so that's the different types of muscles doing their job. One fatigues quicker than the other, one fatigues much less. That is what that is. So if you ever wonder why, I just did 25 that way and only 10 this way, well, different types of muscles are working, and that's what's really cool about the human body. You have different muscles for different jobs, okay? Let's go ahead and hit our leg raise with the pulse. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, control it, 7, good, nice and slow, 8, good, 9, and 10. Nice job. Take a few seconds here, then we're going to do our oblique sit-up again, 10 on each side, and then we're going to finish up with a little bit of antagonistic work, because that's how we got to do it. Still going strong. That's what I'm talking about. Miss Jill, you are awesome. Emma, how are you doing? Glad you're joining along. Let's get set up for that oblique sit-up and oblique crunch. Remember, the oblique crunch is just like the normal crunch with your legs off to one side. Up, 1, 2, 3, back down. All right, same thing, you switch sides. Up, 1, 2, 3, back down. The oblique sit-up, a little more challenging as you push off your elbow and lift your legs and upper body. Ready? 3, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nice job. Let's change sides. You guys are doing fantastic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Very well done. Everyone's doing a fantastic job. We got about 7 more minutes in our workout here today. You guys did a great job. For those who are just jumping in now, I encourage you to go back and watch this later. We started our core routine at about 45 minutes into this video. So if you want to skip ahead, you can, but there's a lot of good stuff we talked about. What we're going to do now is work out the antagonist of all of those flexion muscles. So if you guys did what you were supposed to do and really focusing on your core, you should feel it right now. It should be nice and tight. You can kind of feel like those ab muscles worked, especially the obliques. They're often overlooked and they're so vital. And they're super important into getting that nice tapered look in your six-pack. So what we're going to do now is work on the antagonist. That is the back muscles and stabilizers of the low back. We got 3 exercises. We'll just go through it one time, and then we'll do a few quick stretches, and then we'll be all done, okay? Yay, core. All right, let's quickly go through these these low back exercises. The first one is for the back extensors, or the extensor erector spinae. This is going to be your bridge, and we're all familiar with this. We'll lie down, head, neck, and shoulders relaxed, heels kind of close to your bottom. You're going to push down with your heels and lift your bottom off the ground. 1, we'll do 15, 2, 3, 4, squeeze the glutes, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Nice job. Let's flip it over. Our last 2 are going to be prone, or with our chest facing the floor. We're going to do what's called a quadruped, or this is an alternating arm and leg extension, okay? So hands beneath the shoulders, knees beneath the hips, stretch out the left arm and the right leg, and back down right arm, left leg. As you do this, keep your abdominal squeeze nice and tight. Pull your belly button into your spine and try to get full extension. We'll do 10 on each side. 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, and 10. Good. Nice job, everyone. Just one more exercise to go here. We're going to try our Superman. Let's get 12 of these. This is going to be the lower body. It's going to stay tipped towards the mat. We're going to lift the head, neck, and shoulders off the mat by using our back muscles, okay? Superman, just like you're flying, we'll do 10. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Good. Nice job, everyone. Take a break to recover. 2 of the best stretches for your core are going to be your child's pose for your back and your cobra for your Cobra Stretch for your Rectus Abdominis and the Obliques. So let's do a little bit of stretching here. We're going to start in our hands and knees, and let's just drop back, hips to the heels and hands forward. Stretch and reach out with your fingertips. Push your hips back to your heels and just kind of stretch out here. I also like to do a little bit of a side bend on these, so bring your hands to the left, rock back to the right, and then hands to the right, rock back to the left. Excellent. And then lastly, what we're going to do, if it's comfortable for you, let's do this stretch for our midsection. So kind of get yourself out on your knees, drop your hips down and shoulders high, and just feel a nice stretch in your midsection there. It feels good. Rest, and then one more time. We'll come back up into our seated position. So that's our exercise for today, a workout of the day. It's also our workshop for the day as well. Now, I know that I'm a little bit ahead of you, and I apologize for that. But if you do have any more questions, please comment on our Facebook page or comment on this video, or you can text me directly if you want to, or message us directly. This was our workshop of the day. I'd be more than happy to present these materials to you. If you wanted like a printout of them, I can produce a document for you, and you can take that as well. I got to encourage you to continue to follow Fixer Upper Fitness and everything we're doing during this time. And I just want to encourage you guys, you're doing so good keeping care of your core, keeping care of yourself. And Fixer Upper is just super excited to be a part of what you're doing during this time. We have lots of things coming out. Thank you, Ms. Jill. We have lots of things coming out right now. We work out every day. We're going to start doing some live workouts like we did this week. Stay tuned for our workshops and our FAQs. If you have an FAQ or a frequently asked question that you really want to know the answer to, we'll be more than happy to tackle those things for you. I'd encourage you to look at yesterday's if you didn't already. We talked about what to do when you feel like your support group starts to sabotage you. And yeah, so I'll definitely put something together and I'll send it to you guys and have it available to you, Miss Jill, for sure, because this is a lot of good content on here and there's a lot of information. So I appreciate you guys staying along for the ride. I really enjoyed this. This is the part of training that I really enjoy, and that is not only the teaching, but just the getting down to the nitty-gritty and why do we do the things we do. You know, adding some purpose to the crunch makes the crunch a little bit more
valuable, I think, instead of just, I gotta do crunches. Now you know what exactly you're doing. Why can I do 25 one way and 10 the other way? It's neat. So yeah, look at our FAQ from yesterday about what happens when your support group starts to sabotage you. We do come out with an FAQ every single Friday and in the afternoon sometime, usually around 1 or 1:30. But if you have a question, hit us with it and we'll get it answered for you. And we're not just going to give you our thoughts and opinions on it. We don't do our FAQs just off the cuff. We pour over the research and really give you the best answer. And that's how we do everything here at Fixer Upper. We do everything to the best of our ability, and it's all for you guys because we really, really care about you, and we really want you guys to have a high quality of life and really live the best life you possibly can. I appreciate you all so much for coming by to our FAQ. I had a great time. My core feels great. I'm ready to go home and have some breakfast. It's going to be awesome. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, please let me know, and I will get some information in that printout for you shortly. So thank you all so much. I really had a good time. I'm glad you all came along for the ride. See you next time.